I remember the day he came back to the pastor's house. It was a Sunday evening, and we had just finished a church program. He was standing by the gate, looking worn out. His clothes were faded, and his shoes had seen better days. But it wasn't his appearance that unsettled me, it was the look in his eyes. A mix of desperation and shame. "Brother Paul," he called out to me as I walked past. His voice cracked, like he had swallowed his pride and was struggling to force the words out. "Is Pastor around?" I nodded. "What's the matter, John?" He hesitated. "I need to talk to him. It's important." Something about his tone made me feel uneasy, but I let him in. Pastor was in the study, going through the accounts for the orphanage. When I told him John was here, his expression darkened for a moment, but then he sighed. "Let him in," Pastor said, putting down his pen. When John walked into the room, he fell to his knees immediately. "Pastor, I'm sorry," he began, his voice trembling. "I need your help again." Pastor didn't say anything for a long time. He just sat there, staring at John. The silence was heavy, like the weight of all the years and disappointments between them. "Help?" Pastor finally said, his voice calm but cold. "What kind of help are you asking for, John?" "I want to go back to school," John said, his hands clasped together like he was praying. "I've learned my lesson. I'm ready to take my studies seriously now. Please, Pastor. I just need another chance." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "John. After everything. Let me go back a few years." John was the first son of his family, a family so poor that even having 3 meals a day was a luxury. His father was a farmer, but the land had long stopped producing much. His mother sold small things in the market, barely making enough to keep the family afloat. When Pastor decided to sponsor John through school, everyone in the community saw it as a miracle. Pastor wasn't just paying his tuition, he covered everything: hostel fees, textbooks, a monthly allowance. "This boy will be the voice of his family," Pastor had said. "He'll break the chain of poverty." At first, it seemed like things were going well. John was admitted to a university, and the church celebrated him during one of the services. I even remember the congregation singing for him, wishing him success. But within a year, the rumors started. "John doesn't go to class. John spends his nights at parties. John has carryovers in almost every course. John is living with a girl off campus." At first, Pastor didn't want to believe it. "People will always gossip," he said when someone brought it up. But the reports kept coming. Eventually, Pastor sent me to check things out. When I got to John's university, the truth hit me like a slap. He hadn't paid his school fees for 2 semesters, even though Pastor had sent him the money. His hostel room was empty because he'd moved in with a girl. His lecturers barely recognized his name because he hadn't been attending lectures. I still remember how awkward it was to confront him. "John," I said, trying to sound calm, "what's going on?" "Pastor is worried about you." He laughed it off at first, saying everything was under control. But when I pressed, he got defensive. "Paul, don't act like you're better than me. Do you know how stressful this university life is?" I didn't argue. I just took the information back to Pastor. When Pastor confronted him, he tried to deny it at first, but the evidence was too strong. That was the end of his scholarship. John dropped out of school not long after. For years, he drifted. Nobody really knew what he was doing. Meanwhile, his younger siblings started making their way in life. His sister got a job as a nurse. His younger brother started a small business. The family that had once looked up to him had moved on without him. And now here he was, kneeling in front of Pastor, asking for a second chance. Pastor leaned back in his chair, his face calm but unreadable. "John," he said, Do you remember what I told you the first time I offered to help you? I said this wasn't just about you. It was about your family, your community. I wanted to raise you as a voice for them. But what did you do with that opportunity? John didn't answer. He just stared at the floor. You betrayed my trust, Pastor continued. You wasted not just my money but the hopes of everyone who believed in you. And now you want me to do it all over again. Why should I? Because I've changed, John said, his voice barely above a whisper. I've learned from my mistakes. Pastor shook his head. Change isn't about words, John. It's about actions. If you've really changed, you'll find a way to sort out your life without relying on me. I gave you my best once. That's all I can give. John didn't argue. He just sat there for a moment, then got up slowly and left. As I watched him walk away, I felt a strange mix of pity and anger. Some people never realize the value of what they have until it's gone. And by the time they do, it's often too late.